Fish on First Live is presented by About the Fans. We've partnered with them this season on a brand new merchandise collection featuring t-shirts, polos, hats, and other accessories that Marlins fans will absolutely love. Head on over to aboutthefans.com to shop the FOF collection. Use our special coupon code FOF10 to save 10% off your order. Enter code FOF10 at checkout to save 10% and continue supporting what we do over here.
This is Griffin Conan.
This is Xavier Edwards.
This is Liam Hicks.
This is Dave Myers, and you're watching Fish on First Live.
Welcome back, Fish on First Live. The true dog days of summer at this point. If you are still hanging in with us and following this team closely, or I should say, if you are following this team closely at this stage of the season, you have to be here because it is, I think, a dwindling group of people that are that devoted and that captivated by what's going on. Although this is, on the field, it's been captivating, but ultimately feeling like a bit of a deja vu. Every single series going the same way. I am Eli Sussman. We have Nate Karsmer to my side. Special guest, one of our Fish on First super subs is Parker Heiser. Thanks, Parker, for joining us. Appreciate your support and your takes on all these things. And we are, as usual, presented by About the Fans. Use our promo code FOF10 at aboutthefans.com to save 10% off of t-shirts, polos, hats, stickers, etc. More stuff coming to the collection very soon. So we'll listen to what you guys want us what to put in there, and we'll bring it to you as best as we possibly can. I had mentioned it's kind of deja vu, where 7 straight series the Marlins have won exactly one game in those series. If you do the math, winning one game in a series is usually not enough to win the series. So this one played out very similarly to the other ones against the Atlanta Braves right here, just to pull it up for everybody to see. The 2-1 win in the opener, Edward Cabrera absolutely shoved, and then those last 2 lopsided blowouts in the ends, but for very different reasons. And I wanted to start off with this stat that I had not realized in advance about these last 2 games of the series. It was pointed out by one of our close followers on Twitter about how this is the worst run differential the Marlins have. This is the only time in Marlins history they've had a run differential this bad in consecutive games right there. So I'll get into it in a moment, Nate, how these games got out of hand in very different ways, but this is just so typical of Marlins versus Braves BS, where the Braves are, believe it or not, even worse than the Marlins this year. A lot of reasons to think that not only this series, but when they met in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago, that those would be favorable situations for the Marlins. And yet you get in some ways, a historically pathetic series of back-to-back games in here against them. It's one of those things that's just hard to explain, where every single year, no matter what the circumstances are, the Braves are always going to get the better of the Fish, it seems like.
Very disheartening. And the way they did it, like our friend Alex points out, they did it in such emphatic fashion. Obviously going into that middle game, tied up going into the 9th, and then the questionable decision. We've been talking about it for what seems like the past month, ever since the Marlins scratched and clawed all the way back to 500, and then Clayton McCullough, for whatever reason, Ronnie Enriquez was unavailable. That's what he told the media after the game. For what reason, I don't know. Hasn't been pitching that much. We still don't know an answer on that. I'm going to assume that they want to keep his arm safe. Don't want to risk him going too much, as they do believe, and they have reason to believe that he has a potential key card in this bullpen moving forward for 2026 and beyond. So that's the reason why I do get it. But at the same time, you play to win the game. So going to Tyler Zuber, who has demon traits apparently, little to no command, and then the Josh Simpson experience, man. Josh Simpson, I've said this in the past, amazing guy. He does not deserve to be in these situations. It's really no fault on him. The manager is calling on him to pitch in the game. I don't think he's ready for it yet, and he keeps proving that. Lefties, righties, it doesn't matter. He was brought in there to at least stop the bleeding against lefties. Can't find the strike zone, and then misses too far down the plate with one of his loopy curveballs. And all of a sudden, the Braves put up, I believe, a 9 spot, and Javier Sanoja's pitching, and an inning they entered tied, had a chance to win in the 9th. So And then I guess in yesterday's game, Ryan Dusto, same mold, I guess, what we've seen in his Marlins tenure thus far. Really working himself into a lot of 2-strike counts. I saw it in Jacksonville as well. Just cannot get that strikeout pitch, it seems like. Even when he is ahead on guys, he has that 6-7 pitch mix, and he just can't put it together yet, which really want to overreact on that too much. He has the stuff. I'm not going to act like it's all over. I think very similar to Ryan Weathers. I believe Weathers had more talent, but, there's a little bit of parallel there, so you can't overreact on a guy like Gusto too much right now. So outside Edward Cabrera, who put up 10 Ks like I prophesized, thank you, Eddie, for that. Another tough one, and the Braves just keep their grip on the Marlins. It's tough. No matter the situation, no matter which month, no matter who's winning and who's losing, you can bank on the Braves beating the Marlins, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah. One positive I wanted to get to with you, Parker, is in that middle game. It gets away late, but they had a great chance to win because Sandy was awesome. It's the third straight time that he has put together back-to-back awesome starts now. The last slip-up was against the Braves in Atlanta a few weeks ago, and ever since then, he shoved on the road against the Red Sox, and he shoved in his previous start on this homestand as well. And then this one, he goes another 7 innings in a way where, the overall numbers this season are going to be a disaster no matter what. But how is it? How much does it brighten your mood to see that as we get closer to the end of the year in terms of questioning what's Sandy going to be moving forward, or even if he is going to be back on the trade market? Like, it's in a situation where the patience seems to have paid off. The fact that he's on this stretch that is unlike any other hot stretch he had this entire season up until this point.
I think it's also important to mention, like, he's going deep into the game as well. He's going both last games were over 100 pitches pitched. I mean,
yep.
That's the classic Sandy right there. If he doesn't even necessarily need to be 2022 Sandy to be as valuable as he is. He could be 2021 Sandy and be just as great. And it's very good to see good results coming out of him and Eddie. We know Eddie. I think Eddie had a recent blow up game before the Atlanta game, if I'm not mistaken. It's very good to see him back to what Eddie's been this entire season. But yeah, Sandy's just going to be that stud. He's going to be that workhorse that's going to push us through the rest of the season, and it's a good thing to see him be this way.
We have Alex Carver joining us as well. He just got done with a very special interview that we'll mention at the end of the show. They'll be posting on our channel very shortly. I have to cue you up for some Ronald Acuna Jr. thoughts. He gets hit by a pitch in the early innings of that game yesterday. The Marlins already down by a few runs. The outlook wasn't looking good. But then a brief benches clearing after this one, getting hit by Ryan Gusto, who he obviously has no history with whatsoever. It had actually been a couple years since Acuna had been hit by any Marlins pitcher, period. But for those that have been following this team close enough, they know that this dates all the way back to his rookie season in 2018, and this pattern of behavior where the way that he takes these relatively common incidents to be so personal on a personal level. So just your thoughts on the fact that this is a guy that at this point is a veteran player. He's been in the league. This is his 8th year in the league, and yet he kind of still causes a big scene like this in some really blowing things out of proportion for everybody involved.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I said, if you're going to crowd the plate, take your base. I mean, that's it. I mean, if you're going to play that kind of game, you're going to stick your elbow out over the plate. You're going to stick your elbow out over the inside corner of the plate, and you get brushed back or a guy hits you, take it or take your base. That's it. Like that, there's no getting around it. The fact that this obviously wasn't intentional. The Marlins are back down in the game then, probably nearly out of the game at that point, obviously. I mean, well, they wound up being out of the game, but that third inning wound up being a 5-run inning. At that point, there's no outs. Matt Olson hits his 20th home run of the season, and here's Ronald Acuna Jr. with the bases empty. And yeah, he hits him on the first pitch. I get it. Yeah, it's the first pitch after a home run. That's been brought up by Braves fans. I understand, but this is a pitcher who is new to the major leagues, who is still finding his way, as Nate mentioned, who's working with a bunch of different pitches, trying to figure out the fastball as best as he can. Doesn't even throw upwards of 93 miles an hour, not that that matters. And he hits the guy on his massive Kevlar elbow guard with a 92-mile-an-hour fastball, and he just freaks out and then stares down the pitcher and has to make a spectacle out of it rather than just taking your base. He's a very, very, very childish player is the best way to be. He's a great player, but he's very, very childish. is the best way to put it. And, this is the team. And like you said, dating back to Urania, and I'm not going to make excuses for that one instance where with Urania, the first time that it happened, but to still have feelings about that, like 9 years later, you got to get over it at some point, man. And for a guy to play with that much ego and that much, just childish behavior in your game, it's just not becoming of a Major League Baseball player. I think he should be ashamed of himself. He knows it's not on purpose. I think Brian Snitker, who wound up getting thrown out trying to defend him, I think it's unfair for Snitker to have to defend this player at this point, and he gets thrown out of the game. It's just it's unnecessary from a competitive standpoint, from what you're taught from Little League, to literally just take your lumps. Like, you're going to get hit. When you get hit in Little League or even in high school, they say from the dugout, hey, wear it, go take your base, kid. Like, I've been in those situations, and that's a high school player, not even the major leagues. So for this guy to freak out and set his whole team on edge and, set the whole game back at 5 minutes is just ridiculous. It's terrible behavior. I think Ronald Acuna should be ashamed of himself.
You dug up the numbers on this as well, where over this period of time, he has been hit a lot by the Marlins. He has not been hit as much as among just random players. Michael Conforto, Victor Robles, who doesn't even play in the National League anymore, and guys that have no particular animosity towards the team one way or the other. In fact, I'm sure some of you guys remember one of the most infamous really the only Conforto hit by pitch that stands out is the one where he leaned into it in New York. That must have been either 2021 or 2022 at the start of one of those seasons where he, in a real high leverage, that decided the game pretty much, if I remember correctly, against Anthony Bass, the way that he kind of leaned his elbow into that. So that was a very different situation where with Acuna, it doesn't seem like he's intentionally doing it, but as you explained, he's just set up in a mechanical way that leaves him more susceptible, that indirectly kind of leads pitchers to attacking him that way, because that is where they're able to get him out. Even the numbers back it up, where he's an amazing offensive player down the middle and even in certain cases to the outer third of the plate. But if you get him up and in particular, you're going to have success. And so pitchers, if you miss by a few inches, then that's the difference between a very valuable strike and potentially putting him on base intentionally in this case. So in this one, there were a couple previous ones in his history where he feared for his health, because that's the other aspect of it, is that he kind of dramatizes the potential severity of his injury in some of those cases. That wasn't even the case here, where it was, as you said, it hit him in a very well protected area where the injury concern wasn't even there. So for it to escalate into anything was a big surprise. But we move forward. Last time that the Marlins will see the Braves this year, as I referenced before, this happens every year somehow. The Braves find a way to get the better of the Marlins. The 11th consecutive year that the Braves have won this season series. And at this point, the Marlins still a little bit ahead of them in the standings. I think we briefly mentioned this last time. I don't know if people really care that much who finishes ahead of who, if both of them are well outside the postseason mix. But that is a race, and I have to really put air quotes on that. That is a race that could come down to the wire over this final month of this season.
Just as a last to point out before we put a bow on the Braves series, Eli, I don't think Ryan Augusto was very good in the start at all, but I think Nate kind of alluded to the fact that he couldn't put hitters away. I don't want to pin it on the umpire, but he was not given any favors. And I think if you look at the umpire scorecard from this morning that was put out on umpire scorecards, that's pretty unfortunate for Augusto. And I'm not saying he was good. All I'm saying is that I think he had strikes stolen on upwards of 7 to 8 occasions. And that's going to wear on a young player, like especially a guy that's still trying to figure things out. I mean, I don't think he was nearly as bad as his line would say. So I think he's still going to be around. He's still going to make his next start. I think it could still be okay, as Nate alluded to. I mean, I wouldn't literally just look at this one start and say that he can't be decent, because I think that he can be.
Let me see if I can pull that up very quickly for people to see that scorecard. Even in real time, you could tell that the strike zone was unfavorably tight for him, and this is the numbers behind it. To see, for people not familiar with scorecards, an awesome account, but whenever there is overall favor that is close to 2 runs towards one team or the other, that is really unusual. And now in this case, it was an 11-run game. So does it make a difference between them winning and losing? Absolutely not. But still, the fact that there were calls here that either put runners on. In particular, I think it was right after the Acuna hit by pitch that the next batter drew a walk that should have been a strikeout. That should have been a strike him out, throw him out, double play. It was like the difference between an extra base runner and getting 2 outs. And then the batter after that must have been Albies that hit a home run that really broke it open. So that just goes to show how this stuff is interconnected. It's not so much about one ball versus one strike, but it could be a lot more meaningful than that.
If you see 2 and 3 there, you see who the batter was too, Gusto to Acuna, both times.
Exactly. That was leading right up to the hit by pitch. I think those were the 2 pitches right before he actually got hit right there. So there's another element of that as well, where the pitcher admitted it, whether they admit it or not, they could be feeling pretty frustrated by executing their pitch really well and not getting the call. And then all of a sudden they are just really inaccurate. They overcompensate in some way with that pitch that ultimately really veers out of the way. I'm going to have to bring this up on, I think, our remaining streams this season, keeping an eye on not the wild card race anymore, but keeping an eye on the draft lottery odds, because the Marlins that's where we are right now, where the White Sox are free and clear. They're going to have the top odds of winning the lottery, a little bit over 25%. I highlighted Miami there, currently around, if everybody finishes in the exact layout, or I should say the exact order that they currently are, then the Marlins would have the 6th best odds of winning, about 6% overall. But these teams are pretty jam-packed. You see, it's only about 3 games away from the Pirates. Again, the 2nd best odds, about 3 games the other way towards the Cardinals in that sense. So there is a whole lot to be decided in this aspect. And the Marlins have been very consistently dropping in here, because if they've lost 7 straight series as a whole, that's how this stuff changes pretty quickly. Where I think about a week ago, you could still hold on to a little thread of them sneaking into the wild card race, especially depending on what they would do during these upcoming Mets series. But now all of a sudden, that's why I called this a true dog days, where there's not really a clear thing for them to chase at this point. It doesn't seem realistic that they're going to make up ground in the wild card race. And even though they're not going to focus on this aspect of it either, because last year they had very good odds of winning the whole thing, winning the lottery, and it was close to a worst case scenario in terms of how far they fell in that order. But just something to keep an eye on to this point, about where they stand in that whole grand scheme of things. Okay. We should go to.
It's going to be Atlanta at number 1. That's going to be our luck.
That would be very Bravesy, where the 1 year in forever, that the 1 year in the whole draft lottery system where the Braves don't make the playoffs is the 1 year that maybe they pick extremely high and do something positive with it. That would just be exactly what you expect, all things considered. Well, one of the several notable angles about this upcoming series is the return of Adam Mazur. This is going to be his 2nd start in the big leagues, and essentially replacing Jansen Junk, because Junk suffered this little, what are we calling it, inflammation in kind of around the forearm area. Let me make sure I get the right diagnosis here for Jansen Junk. Right ulnar nerve irritation. And now they downplayed it when it happens and made it seem like it wouldn't even be an IL stint. And now it turns out that the way that Junk explained it, he expected it to be really minimal, that maybe he could be back. He will definitely be back this year, and potentially a minimum of 15 days, just because there's no pain involved. They just need to, I think he said that he could already be resuming throwing as soon as today, potentially. We'll have to see exactly how that plays out. But given the little bit of uncertainty about it potentially recurring, they call up Mazur. Nate, we got to see him once earlier this year at the big league level. That was against the Phillies. And then, a little surprising that he wasn't kept around a bit longer than that. Things haven't gone particularly well since he's been sent down to Jacksonville again, but he's still somebody that is one of the better pitching prospects this system has, and has the traits to be a starter if he puts it all together. How are we feeling about the state of Adam Mazur and kind of where he stands in this whole rotation depth chart? Not just for the rest of this year, but more so for 2026.
I believe his stock is down just after a rocky, like you mentioned. He had that decent start against Philadelphia. I believe it was 1 walk, and then after was a 3-run shot to Bryson Stott to center, and that kind of damper on his outing a little bit. But overall, he still has that good fastball, still has a good mix of off-speed pitches. Just And Jacksonville really up and down. He gave up 5 earned runs earlier in the month, and 4-2. Having some issue with the long ball a little bit. I mean, in July, he allowed at least 1 every single start. So that continues to bite him at the AAA level. It's going to be interesting to see how he fits into this rotation. I don't even know if he's going to get an extended look now, especially with how long Jansen's injury is going to last. Obviously, has a good chance to make a first impression. Well, I guess second impression, but against the New York Mets team that is streaking after beating the Braves off of Philly this past week. So it's going to be really interesting, like I said. So might have a chance here, but I think overall you're not going to get that much of a look from him, and it's going to be hard to prove in Jacksonville against much similar lineups that he's been going against for the past, over a year now, because he's pretty much been camping out in Jacksonville ever since the Marlins got him in that Tanner Scott deal. So probably right around the same stock as his high school teammate Max Meyer. Just those two guys maybe have a potential role in that bullpen moving forward, but just with the overall guys, you have, obviously Sandy, Erie, Tabby in the bids right now, and then Thomas and all those Robbie and all those guys in the minors coming up. So it's going to be a bloodbath to get that spot, but he has a good chance, obviously, tonight and moving forward. I think if he does well tonight, that can set him up well for these next potential outings moving forward.
There's definitely this little window where Junk is going to miss not just this start, but at least one more after it. And then Ryan Weathers, he's about to go on a rehab assignment this weekend, but that's going to take about 2 rehab starts after that for him to get fully stretched out to rejoin. Yeah, this could be very brief, but it does look like that no matter what, I think he'll get one more start after this one, just because that's when eventually you get those reinforcements to come right in here. But Carver, he's been on that same Jacksonville pitching staff as Robbie Snelling. So this would have been a potential opportunity to bring up Snelling if they wanted to. But if this wide opening is here, if the fact that they have Gusto in the rotation, despite his kind of mediocrity to this point, it sure smells like Snelling is going to have to wait until next year to debut, right?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, you have to gauge 40-man spots, going into next year, like who deserves a 40-man roster spot. And this guy's on the 40-man roster. So does he belong on it? That's what the Marlins are trying to figure out. So I think that for this player in specific, I think Snelling is the better pitcher. If you ask me personally, I think Snelling, not only performance-wise, but stuff-wise, Snelling is the better pitcher. But for Mazur, it's a lot of strikes, but I would also say it's a lot of zone. Usage wise, he was trying to figure out curveball so much in spring training, whereas he was really struggling with it. I saw him, like, they literally laid out a hat, like a baseball hat, in front of home plate to try to get him to land the curveball properly, and he still couldn't do it. It was a real struggle for him to try to figure out that pitch. Good movement on it, he just couldn't keep it out of the dirt. Since he's been back in Jacksonville, it's kind of gone away from it. It's only like 10% usage, and he's going more slider than I think he ever has in his career. Fastball is like 94, 93, thereabouts. The slider's good. Sinker could be good, but he just literally does not get ground balls. He's either getting strikes or he's allowing hard contact, is kind of what this pitcher has struggled with, is the inability to limit contact when he is allowing it. That's not to say he hasn't gotten his strikeouts, because he has like 100 strikeouts, which is decent. And he doesn't walk guys, which is really good. So he's going to keep guys off base in that regard. But against major league hitters, you really got to worry about the amount of impact they can do with the baseball bat, because this guy is in the zone a lot with the stuff that he has right now. He really needs to figure out commanding a little bit better lower half, needs to figure out a little bit better commanding ways, or commanding in terms of allowing more limited contact is kind of what this guy really needs to do to figure it out. And he's going to have to now do it, at least for the short term, like you said, at the major league level. Didn't do it really well in Jacksonville, but we'll see what he's got. And I think it could play out. I just think he has a long ways to go to really reach the ceiling. So I have hope. I'm totally not out on this player, but I think that I would personally temper expectations in terms of how this is going to go.
Yeah. Those highlights that I just played, that's from his most recent start. That was against the Red Sox AAA team. It looks good in moments, but then you look at the overall line. He went 4 innings. He allowed 2 runs. He actually walked 3 guys in that outing, which is about as many as he did in any AAA outing this season. And wasn't particularly efficient with his pitches, but more so because it was not being able to finish off hitters. So it's been kind of up and down from him in a way that there is overall the year hasn't gone exactly the way that he wanted to. all you can say is that he has been healthy. He's been able to pitch on a pretty consistent basis. I think he'll end up setting a new professional career high in innings pitched as long as he stays healthy throughout this final month of the season. And we will, be interested to watch this one tonight against a Mets team that I think might be, in terms of quality competition, pretty similar to the Phillies team that he faced in his previous outing at the major league level for this.
I would say as the last, Eli, on him before we go on.
Mm-hmm.
He's this lanky little dude with like kind of long arms, long legs kind of guy. I mean, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's really lanky. So I really think another one of his big struggles is that he struggles with repeatability. I really do. And I've thought that since I saw him struggling with the curveball, as I mentioned in spring training, he just doesn't repeat well at all. And I think it gets him in trouble a lot. So just watch how he repeats, and I like watch his delivery pitch to pitch. And if you kind of clue in on it, maybe slow it down a little bit, it really looks just not comfortable. I think that cleaning that up will help him a lot as well. Hasn't been able to do it yet. I think that might have helped lead to those 3 walks. Again, he's in the strike zone a ton, but he's in the strike zone way too much.
I'm pretty sure we don't have the confirmation on this. I'm pretty sure that tomorrow Connor Norby is going to come back from the IL. There's a bit of a false alarm because they very long rehab assignment, relatively speaking, to spend essentially a full week in Jacksonville. It went very well for him. Hit a couple homers. He played third base in all but one of those games. And he had one kind of questionable error that I didn't really think was all his fault to begin with. He's been out since right before the All-Star break. And since they've been patching it, it seemed that Graham Pauley was really set up to kind of take over that position. And then Pauley goes down with an injury himself. And so these last couple of weeks has been this interesting balance between Javier Sanoja and also Maximo Acosta. Acosta, who only hits home runs, but has not been doing anything else outside of that. I think we talked about Acosta on the past couple streams. It does look like Norby is coming off the IL at this point tomorrow, and things, at least for the foreseeable future, while Pauley is out, it looks like Norby will get to reestablish himself as a third base candidate, maybe the leading third base candidate for this team moving forward. But it's been an interesting conversation throughout the summer, just seeing the way that he has been a little bit underwhelming, the way that Pauley has stepped up, and even when they put Sanoja at third base, the way that he's been affecting the game has been pretty encouraging. Where you stand, Parker, on Norby and your confidence level in him, with him, and how he fits with this organization? Because it seems like up the middle, this team is pretty well set with X and with Otto, and with Norby, third base has been this relatively new position for him. And the fact that he just hasn't hit quite as well this year as he did towards the end of last year, all of a sudden kind of running low on time to reestablish himself. He's maybe going to have 1 month here towards the very end of the year to try to make the case that both offensively and defensively, he could be that guy, the guy that this team kind of felt was locked in as a big piece of the organization moving forward. But now, what do you think? Where do you think he stands in this grand scheme of things?
As the main guy at third base, I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, maybe he shocks us this last month. He ends up performing closer to what he performed at the end of last year, but I don't see him as the main guy going at third anymore. Now, as a platoon option, that's a lot more realistic, I think, for somebody like him. I mean, if you didn't. I mean, I know obviously a lot of people have been interested in the Norby Pauley platoon. That's a little bit better. I mean, Pauley obviously had his struggles very early on in the year, and that was very, very noticeable. But I mean, when it came back up after he got a little bit of a break at going back to AAA like he desperately needed, he's actually been looking like a better option at third. But I think Norby could make it as a third baseman as long as he's platooning. As a starter, no. But platooning, I think it's possible. Hell, maybe try him at first since we might need somebody for there next year.
That is an interesting angle to it too, at first base, and how those can be kind of connected. Norby would be pretty undersized for a first baseman, but then again, Liam Hicks is pretty undersized right now, and they're using him a lot over there. Anything he didn't touch on, Nate, that you want to bring up when it comes to Norby and what he's got to show for, like, what is most important, I should say, for what he has to do on the field this last month of the season?
Yeah, most importantly, I would just say you got to trim down the swing and miss, man. His what really sticks out to me if you look at his Savant page, his longitudinal sweet spot percentage has been elite this year, and it was elite last year. What really has dropped is his whiff rate and his strikeout percentage. That's both gone through the absolute roof. Both hands, it really doesn't matter. He's chasing so much. It feels like right before he even went on the IL, Kyle talks about it on the broadcast a lot. But when you're slumping, it feels like you're an 0-2 a lot. And right before Connor got hurt, that guy felt like he was 0-2 every at bat, maybe fend one off and strike out on 4 pitches at that point. But the power's still there. I don't want to give up on him just yet as a potential franchise third baseman because just how high he was last year and how high his stock was after just the first 2 months in Miami. He was really good. Obviously, we saw what that meant for Kyle Stowers, and then they pretty much flip-flopped. It was like the Monstars from Space Jam. They just swapped abilities, those two. So hey, here's the hoping that Connor can figure it out at this level. Defensively, he's looked a little bit better at third. Still, I wish we had the potential to see him and Graham actually in a real platoon situation, especially if this team did stay competitive. That'd be very fun to watch. But if I believe that, I mean, this staff has proven already that they can trim guys swing and miss down with Stowers and different Conine. So don't want to give up on that just yet from a guy that has all the intangibles to do it. But I don't know if it's too early to say time's ticking or not, because like Parker said, there really are no instant guys that you think of in this farm. Like, wow, I mean, this guy can play third and replace him right now. So I believe there's still time with Connor, but I feel like, he's got to start putting it together soon. I think he could. It's just all about working on the opposite field with him, which is when he really succeeded last year. So with less, Oppo more, and we could really be seeing return to 2024 Connor Norby.
I had not actually realized, as MJS points out, his reverse platoon splits over the course of his career. It's a 600 OPS against lefties, not just this year, but this year and last year. So that is, it just points to a guy that is not a prototypical platoon candidate, a guy that you want to stick with on a pretty consistent basis, or somebody that you have in the next man up or on the bench or at AAA as depth piece, because he's not a guy that is particularly somebody that's super vulnerable against righties, but he's also one that's just not shown whatsoever yet that he can hit lefties and take advantage of those opportunities. Quickly on this, TP Joseph, I think he's bringing up what things look like when rosters expand on Monday, what sort of moves we might see. And I don't think it's going to be a ton of compelling stuff. I could actually just pull up the 40-man roster here and take a peek at what we think is most likely to come, because the next time we do a stream is going to be after they already make those decisions. Let me just bring this up. So this is what today's move is, with Mazur coming up and Freddie Tarnick going down. Then when you have Norby coming up tomorrow, we assume they're either going to send down Acosta or Weimer, one of the two. You can make the case either way, because Weimer's not really doing anything on this roster, and Acosta is playing quite a bit, but showing that he still could benefit from some developmental time. So I don't think it would benefit him a whole lot to have him even deeper on the bench from this standpoint. And the thing is, there's a little bit of a lag between when Paulie and Stowers come back. It seems that both of them are at least a week and a half away, maybe even more than that. So, and lurking all the way at the bottom, Griffin Conine, everything's trending in the way that Conine should be returning to this team later in September, but that is going to be even longer away, because he'll need a very lengthy rehab assignment after missing so much time with his shoulder issue. So the question is, what other position player will come up? And you can kind of narrow it down at this point. I think we'll see VMJ potentially on Monday. I think that's a scenario where that makes me think even more that Weimer could be the guy that goes down initially for Norby, and then a couple of days later, they bring up VMJ, who's been hitting pretty well at the AAA level. Didn't get to play a whole lot early in the season, but in the meantime, while Stowers is still out, and so you have a right field that is an outfield that is very right-handed heavy for the time being, there's going to be some at-bats for him that are a lot of them that are going to Troy right now. So I think that's the interesting part of it, is that Troy all of a sudden has found a lot of consistency at the plate, and they are keeping him in the lineup very consistently by using him in the corner outfield spots. He's playing a lot of left and right compared to first base, which means that it's not really a huge opening for VMJ, but I think he would be my educated guess in terms of the position player that comes up when rosters expands. What were you thinking about that, Carver? Is there any like viable alternative among the position players, whether it's in Jacksonville or even in Pensacola, that they might bring up instead?
I mean, not really. I think that VMJ is the obvious one to come up. I don't think De Los Santos is anywhere near ready to come up, unfortunately. Cerna, obviously not. So, I mean, if you look at your other options, I would say that VMJ is the one that makes the most sense. But I don't think it'll be for a long period of time. So it's probably just going to be for a couple weeks, maybe. But I think Troy has earned those reps that you talked about. And I think that he is deserving of them as he continues to find more consistent contact at the plate. It's been cool to see him just start to figure it out. So it's been cool for him. I'm proud of him. He's a cool guy. But yeah, I think VMJ makes sense. Get him here. It's another guy that you can stick in the outfield, play all three spots. So, I mean, Troy can't play center field, and he can play center field at least when somebody's off or whatever it may be. So, yeah, I mean, late in games, you could bring him in. He's speedy on the bases. So, I mean, he provides a benefit to the team as rosters expand. So, like you said, it'll be one position player, one pitcher. I would expect it to be VMJ as the position player, honestly, in my opinion.
Then on the pitching side, yeah, that's kind of uneventful. They could do a whole lot of things in terms of what reliever they bring up temporarily to kind of fill things out. Whether it's, I think Freddie Tarnock in this case would actually have to wait a while just because he just got options. So my familiarity with that rule is that he still is not going to be eligible to come up on September 1st right away. We haven't seen Michael Peterson yet this season. We've seen plenty of George Soriano. Maybe he gets one last chance as the true mop-up man on the very back of the Ben situation. I mean, the sexier possibility is somebody like Josh White, who's not on the 40-man roster, but he's been shoving all season long, both with Pensacola and then even with Jacksonville. And he's the guy that they'll have to protect from the Rule 5 draft in the offseason anyway. Josh White is, I think, a guy that has about as much strikeout upside as anybody on the big league team, with the exception of Ronnie. So that is what I am quietly rooting for, that they squeeze one of these other pitchers off the 40-man and then bring up Josh White to give him a little bit of a runway heading into the offseason, just because he's done everything he possibly can to deserve it. I think he very recently just followed the Fish on First account on Twitter, but that is not influencing my segment here. It's something that just occurred in my mind separate from this conversation. But that's a guy in Jacksonville that sticks out to me, even though he's not even on the 40-man, that we might see get called up. As MJS kind of suggests here, Soriano would be very vulnerable to get DFA'd, as well as a couple of these other guys, frankly, that are not going to be a significant piece of this pen moving forward. So yeah, that is what we might see. That would go into effect on Monday. So that's going to be for that Nationals series and not affecting this current one. Let me take a look at the lineups for this first game of the series. See who Adam Mazur's going up against. And on the other side, Clay Holmes pitching for the Mets and having a very good season relative to expectations for a guy that was kind of up and down as a reliever and all of a sudden is a pretty reliable starter for this team. Starting off with the Mets side, Parker, who is it? There's a lot going on here with this Mets team where they have been extremely streaky this year. There were times not that long ago where their overall offensive production was basically the same as the Marlins were. They were really underachieving, but all of a sudden, really just shortly in advance of this series, kind of getting their stuff together and getting back on track in a way that all of a sudden their playoff odds are pretty close to a lock at this point. Who is among all these Mets guys, who are you most afraid of seeing come up to the plate over the course of these next 4 days?
I mean, any one of the top three, just is, if it doesn't put a chill down your spine, you don't know baseball. I think at all of them, I think the one that's got to scare me the most is as great as player as Juan Soto is. I just think Lindor is the heart and soul on that team, and I think he's the one he's going to scare the shit out of me the most, put it frankly. Mm-hmm. I would definitely be terrified anytime he's at the plate. I think the world of Lindor as a player, and anytime he's up there, just try to avoid him at all costs.
I'll have to pull up his numbers really quick just to familiarize myself about his career against the Marlins to this point. Of course, most of that has come the last 5 years since he got traded over to the Mets and extended. It's better than I thought. That he has an 887 career OPS against the Marlins as a guy that that is well above his career average, but he's on like a 40 home run pace over the course of a season in just his games against the Marlins. He's homered 18 times in 72 games. Wow. So I did not realize that he's been really dangerous. In particular, if you balance all of that out, especially in the power department. Yeah, Soto is gradually coming around. Alonso, it's been right up there with some of his best seasons as a Met, and a big improvement over where he was last year. I want to shout out Brett Beatty, because Beatty is a name that a few years ago we heard floated in trade rumors between the Mets and the Marlins. I think there was at least one report from the New York Post about potential Beatty for Edward Cabrera possibility in one of those previous off seasons. This was back during the Kim Eng era. So, and he's a guy that I didn't really see it with him. He had plenty of prospect hype. He had amazing numbers in the upper minors, but this is already his 4th season in the big leagues. In the first 3, he just didn't hit very much whatsoever. But all of a sudden, he is, over the last month or so, he is about as hot as anybody else on this team. He has an OPS over 1,000 during the course of August. A lot of power that he's displaying, and he actually grades out as an above-average defender at third base as well. So Brett Beatty is a guy that hasn't really haunted the Marlins much at all during the course of his career to this point, but maybe this is his coming out party of sorts. It took some time, but they were patient with him, just like the Marlins were patient with Eddie, where a few years ago, the idea of trading him for a prospect like that seemed somewhat fair and possible. But all of a sudden, both those guys, their stock is way up, but especially Eddie. Yeah, anything else, Nate, about this Mets lineup that you're going to be looking closely at over the course of these few days?
Yeah, I guess another former Marlins trade target right below him, Cedric Mullins, who I was for so long, and back in, was it 2021, 2022, was hammering I was really wanting the Marlins to pick up Cedric for, I don't want to say maybe Cabrera or started like that, but obviously that guy's first look in a Mets uniform against the Marlins. Marlins didn't see it much of him when he was in Baltimore, probably for the best, because that guy, one of the best defensive center fielders in all of baseball, definitely will climb a wall or two. And a little bit better with the bat as well. Obviously, it's not showing for it on the Savant page, but don't miss fastball up. Cedric Mullins will take it. Probably where Jazz took the draw back in 21. So, yeah, kind of like Parker said, this lineup up and down, very lethal. They're starting to figure it out, obviously, after that aforementioned Philly series. So it seemed real like a couple of weeks ago that the Marlins would catch these guys, but they've pretty much just been trending in opposite direction since. So, but at least it's 4. So hopefully split. That's the best you can do.
It's a 10-game gap between these teams all of a sudden. It was hovering around 6 games for such an extended period because both of them were going down the tubes at the same time, but the Mets coming off a sweep of the Phillies, and that is kind of what's given them about as big a separation as they've had since like late June was probably the last time they were up double digits on the Marlins. So that race itself has kind of run its course at this point. On the Marlins side, it's a little bit different than we've seen, at kind of flipping Hicks and Gus in this situation between the 3 and the 4 spots. Gotten pretty used to seeing Gus bat 3rd and Hicks bat 4th, but now the other way around. And Troy batting right in the middle of things. They have now kind of switched to a pretty rigid platoon situation where he is in the lineup against all right-handers, and Wagman, he's really only in there when lefties come into the game. I had noted this before, I think just privately in our chat, that Troy has still not faced a single left-handed pitcher. He's been up in the big leagues for a full month, and he has not batted once against a lefty, not even a position player lefty. I don't think they've faced many position player pitchers, but you kind of get the idea that no matter how low the leverage situation is or how early it is in the game, they have been just swapping him and Wagman to get that advantage. And it's working well for Troy, and it actually has worked relatively well for Wagman over the course of that period of time, even though it has eaten into his playing time quite a bit. This could be, so yeah, we'll see exactly what the roster move is for Norby. Maybe this is the last start for Acosta for a while, or maybe it is that they end up sending down Weimer instead. So yeah, still to be determined exactly how that shifts things around. But we'll be curious to see exactly where they bat Norby in this lineup, because a lot of the first half of the season, Norby was towards the bottom. He was batting 6th or lower on most nights. And even now with a lot of guys slumping ahead of him in that lineup, X is going through a bit of a slump. Gus has been more down than up lately. Yeah, I'll be interested to see where exactly they plug Norby into this mix when it comes to that. But yeah, this is an offense that kind of understandably, when you lose Stowers and the way that Paulie was playing, ever since both of those guys went down, it has gone back to being a pretty mediocre group, all things considered here. I guess, yeah, this is a good time. It's one of the few times that Dane is in the lineup against a righty. We haven't really seen that a whole lot. So, Parker, where are you on Dane in the kind of roller coaster season that he has had? There was a time early on where he was about as valuable as an all-around player as anybody that the Marlins had. And this has been a pretty extended slump now. That goes back to really almost 3 months at this point, where he's just been one of the least productive hitters, not just on this team, but across the league. Is this guy that has a clear role with this team? I think the boat has kind of sailed on him as a everyday player. They gave him that shot and it didn't really work out. But you think he's going to still stick around in some capacity in 2026?
I think he will. I think, he's a good enough fielder to where he could stick as a fourth outfielder. I don't like you said, I don't think he's going to be ever be a full-time guy for this team. Not by a long shot, unfortunately. But we'll always have the memories of Dane Myers, just like who was the guy with Jonathan Davis that tore his ACL like a few years ago? That we have the memories of him too.
Yeah, that's kind of depressing, but accurate now that I think about it, to have him and Jonathan Davis in the same conversation, because that's kind of a short-lived thing where he's doing fine. But yeah, if you really zoom out, it's kind of putting them in the same bucket seems fair, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's about as good as we're gonna get. I mean, if the best thing we have with Dane Myers is great memories of him, that's that's better than I can say for most guys like Brinson or any other guys that have been highly hyped prospects that just didn't pan out worth a darn here. So I'd much rather have a Dane Myers type than a Lewis Brinson type in that regard, but that's a story for another day. But I don't think we're going to see the last of Dane Myers this year, but he's definitely, his leash is definitely not as long as it was earlier in the season.
Mm-hmm. Let me just pull up the probable starters for the first 3 games of this series. Mazur and Holmes tonight. Carver, tell us anything that we might find interesting about Jonah Tong as he's going to make his major league debut, a guy that I think statistically is about as dominant as any pitcher in minor league baseball this year. And that's going to be a pretty sexy matchup with him and Yuri coming up in the second game of the series.
Yeah, I don't know how you can argue with a sub-2 ERA with 179 strikeouts and 113 innings pitched. 179 strikeouts and 113.2 innings pitched. That's insane numbers. It's stuff that you just don't really come across a lot. That's a true star. And I mean, undersized dude. He's like 6'1". Like, he's not a big guy at all. But this guy comes across serious deception. Really good 4-pitch guy. He's been incredible. And like you said, outside of like Thomas and guys like that, I mean, Thomas obviously from the left side, this guy's a righty. One of the most dominant pitchers in minor league baseball at the age of 22. And I'm excited to watch this guy pitch just as a baseball fan. It sucks that it's against the Marlins because I think he's going to be really good. But the amount of deception on breaking stuff that this guy has is insane. So watch the breaking stuff. It's seriously legitimate. It's really, really good stuff. And it's all from a pretty small guy. So packs a lot into a small package, which is pretty incredible. I think his stuff will play up to Major League Baseball very well, just because of the amount of deception this guy has and the amount of control that he does over it as well. So really good. You're not going to get a lot of free passes off this guy if the stuff does play up. I mean, to only allow 18 earned runs all season, 179 strikeouts, 47 walks. That's absolutely insane. So this is a deserved call up. He's 22. He's ready for this. And he's getting the Marlins at the right time. So I think this is a good situation for this guy, and to make the debut at home too is always cool. So I'm excited to watch this guy pitch as a baseball fan for sure. I think we all should be.
Right. I just pulled up the minor league leaderboard for this year and strikeout rate. I set a minimum at 70 innings. That is right below what Thomas has done this year. And Jonah Tong, second ranked pitcher in all minor league baseball with those minimum innings and strikeout rate at 40%. And right behind him, exactly one spot behind him, is Thomas White at 37.3% this year. And Thomas is about 2 years younger than Jonah Tong is. So as special as this guy is, and might be a nuisance in the coming years to face against the Marlins, there's going to be a counter offensive coming as soon as next season with Thomas likely joining the Marlins rotation.
Purely different pitchers too, with Thomas with the size lefty, like just planing downwards, whereas this guy's just straight at you and you can't hit it. So they're completely different. They're getting it done in different ways, but the stats point out that both these guys can be pretty damn dominant. Just because you're less than 6'4" doesn't mean you can't be a quality pitcher in Major League Baseball. Don't forget it.
Mm-hmm. And that's a very natural transition for me to plug the new Swimming Upstream episode that we'll be posting tomorrow on our YouTube channel, on all of our podcast platforms. Interview with Thomas White, with Carver, with Isaac Azud as well. Checking in with him from AA Pensacola in the midst of an awesome season that is cemented himself. Now, he's already been cemented as the top prospect in this organization, but really climbing towards the very tippy top of all pitching prospects in all of minor league baseball. So very much looking forward to that. You guys just finished recording before we went on the stream, so I can't even give any hints in terms of what you guys discussed. I know what the questions were. I don't know what his answers were. So I can't wait. I'll have to listen to that right after the stream and then prepare it to go out for everybody to listen to. So hope everybody enjoys the show.
I won't give away too much, but it was great. We packed a lot. Speaking of packing a lot into a small package, which I just mentioned with Jonah Tong, packed a damn good interview into about 20 minutes. So on your way to work tomorrow, go listen to the show. If you have a 20-minute drive to work, you'll fit in the whole show. But it was great. And the only thing I'll point out, go watch the show. Isaac, I appreciate Isaac jumping on. Kevin couldn't be on because he had to work, but I appreciate Isaac pinch hitting for this. I think we did a damn good job on this one. Super excited to talk to Thomas. Appreciate the Watchers for putting it together. But the only thing I will tease is that we asked him about one certain start this year, and in that certain start where he did very special things, he was not at his best per stats. So if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But go watch the full show and you'll hear more about it. Great stuff from Thomas. Appreciate everybody putting that together, and I'm excited for you guys to hear it. So go have fun listening to it tomorrow.
Okay. Final segment of this show, as usual, we head over to prediction time.
This is prediction time.
I think we're going to win a lot of games, a lot more games than you think we're going to win this year.
All right, let me get everything set up for this. A 4-game series. I will remind you one final time. 4 games for your prediction, not the usual 3, but the history is what the history is. The Marlins have not won a series since that super high of sweeping the Yankees. That's a long time ago at this point, but they've been very consistent since then, losing series, not getting swept in any one of them, but falling short against a wide variety of opponents. Quick look at our leaderboard overall. This is for our staffers, our super subs, and our live stream guests. Parker checks 2 of those boxes simultaneously. It's still our staffer, Hector Rodriguez, with a month to go. That's a 2-point lead atop this leaderboard. And Parker makes his selections under the name Baby Seal. He is tied for 3rd place. He is still very much in contention. I am not. Nate is not. Carver is not. We're all on the leaderboard, but below the cutoff. If you want to see the full leaderboard, that is up on fishonfirst.com. If you really want to follow along and see how everybody has done on their predictions this season, how many games the Marlins are going to win, who will be the series MVP as determined by win probability added. So I will get the music going first, and we will turn it over to Nate to get his predictions to lead us off.
Yeah, I believe the Marlins will split the series in not a major, but Sandy, Tabby, and Erie all going this series. I feel like 2 of them might be blowouts, but the Marlins might just scratch off 2 just based off the back of those pitchers. MVP, I'm not going to go with the Marlins hitter or Marlins pitcher, but I got to go with someone that did spend some time in the state of Florida, Tampa native and Florida Gator Pete Alonso. That guy kills the Marlins every time he plays him, it seems like. I think he's going to hit 2 this weekend. but the Marlins will salvage split.
All right, Parker, you know how this works. Let's hear from you.
As much as I would love to pick the Marlins to win this series or to even split the two games, even with the pitchers we have going at the back end of the series, I think we'll continue the streak of winning only one game in the series. It'll be a 3-1 Mets victory for the series, and I'm going to pick Lindor to win the series MVP.
All right, Alex Carver, your prediction, sir.
I'll keep mine short and sweet because Nate already stole it. I think that the Marlins will split the series. I think Jonah Tong is going to really impress people, but I mean, Pete Alonso, 239, 326, 536 career slugging percentage with 29 career home runs against the Marlins at Citi Field. He's the MVP.
All right. I have to stick to what's been going on. I can't even give them credit for a split in this case where they're going to have to prove me wrong. They're going to have to break the trend at some point. But until they do, I'm going to have the Marlins losing yet another series and winning exactly one game in said series. So the Mets take this one 3 out of 4 in New York. I will be in attendance for the latter two of these games. So maybe the way that things play out, they win one of those that I'll be covering for on behalf of Fish on First. For series MVP, I'll go with Brett Beatty. He's starting. I don't know if he's going to be starting every single game of the series, but the Marlins are a very right-handed heavy pitching staff, and I think the easy lean is always to go with a left-handed hitting player on the other side, especially one that's been doing pretty well lately, but one that hasn't really had any huge signature moments against the Marlins yet in his young career. So I think Beatty is overdue to have one of those or multiple of those over the course of these 4 games in Queens. That'll be an 8th straight series loss for the Marlins. Prove me wrong, guys. Fish on First Live, presented by About the Fans, as usual. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Some not necessarily the end of an era, but I think we're going to experiment with some different scheduling of the live streams down the stretch of this season. So stay tuned for details about that, and we will keep you interested. A lot of the same conversations, but maybe at a different landing point in terms of when we go live compared to the games themselves. We'll keep you tuned in terms of the scheduling for the final month of this regular season. We appreciate everybody that has tuned in over the course of the year. And as always, we welcome your live comments and all of your support. So enjoy the games. I've been Eli Sussman, Nate Karsmer, Alex Carver, Parker Heiser. Thank you, especially Parker, for supporting what we do. And we'll talk to you again next week. Have a happy Labor Day weekend. Enjoy the full start of college football season as well. Go Canes and go Fish.
Fish on First Live is presented by About the Fans. We've partnered with them this season on a brand new merchandise collection featuring t-shirts, polos, hats, and other accessories that Marlins fans will absolutely love. Head on over to aboutthefans.com to shop the FOF collection. Use our special coupon code FOF10 to save 10% off your order. Enter code FOF10 at checkout to save 10% and continue supporting what we do over here.